The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Podcast here with an old friend of the podcast, my man Antwan Staley. Twan, it's been almost 2 years since we last spoke on the show, man. What's going on?
Not much, man.
I'm good, man. I'm good. The folks want to know how you're doing, though, because people, even some people who listen to this podcast regularly have told me, "Yeah, we haven't Antwan in a while." Like, yeah, we gotta get the man back on because it's funny because like.
I have a hard time believing people ask about me, but
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Trust me on that. No, it's funny because, like, we had this podcast 10 years, and I would say you're probably, in terms of like appearances and whatnot, and just being on the show regularly, you're definitely in the top 5 most appearances. You know what I'm saying? And yet, for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, we've gone silent, and it's not really your fault either. It's all my fault. That's for the record. I take full blame for that.
No, yeah, it's just, like I say, things happen. So I mean, it is what it is. Right. I mean, it's not like it's been the easiest year for anybody. So you just kind of get wrapped up in other things.
Yeah. So what's going on with you, real quick, personally, man? I mean, last time we spoke, you're back to North Carolina, and then now you took a job within the last year covering the Florida State Seminoles in Tallahassee. Tell me, how's that going?
I really hate talking about myself, but I guess
you still hate that, huh?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. I really don't like talking about myself. I don't like bringing attention to myself. But yeah, I've been doing that for the last 4 months, and yeah, it's been going well. Everything's been going good. Just covering all different aspects of sports and other stuff too, Florida State wise. So it just definitely opened my eyes up in a different direction.
I've known you about close to about 9 years, and you're still the same. Still shy, still, even keeled, don't get too high, not too low, very humble guy.
Yeah, man, that's just how I was brought up. So, yeah. Man. I mean, I think it's probably closer to 10 years, I think, when I came on your podcast first time in like 2012. So, it's been a while.
You're still gonna tell me your middle name, aren't you? Nah? That ended up being a little bit of a joke for a while. Like Kyle Nash and I would talk about it and would bring you up, and I'm like, one day I'm gonna get the middle name of Antwan Staley. One day.
It's not really a big
deal. No, I know.
I could tell y'all like behind the scenes, but it's not a big deal.
It's just a running joke, dude. It's all good, man. It's all good. All right, we got a couple of things on. The reason I'm bringing on the show, because like I said, one of the cool things about you, being part of this family, Earnest Speaking family for the last decade, is that as I said off the record, and I'll say it on the record now, you're probably the easiest, if definitely top 3 easiest people to talk to in terms of content, especially around sports, and then anything want to go on. I can touch on anything. You pretty much can fill in content easily, whether it's hockey, basketball, football. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So you're pretty easy. Even hip hop. Like last time we did on the podcast, I remember sharing a little clip of what we were talking about Busta Rhymes. About a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know you're a big Busta.
You damn right I am.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you listen to his last record, but it's pretty.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was definitely really good. Yeah, I was definitely pleasantly surprised listening to that. So it was definitely fun to listen to.
And we'll talk about hip. I got something for you on the tail end of the podcast concerning hip hop. We'll talk in a second, but let's start here. Last week, Carson Wentz finally gets traded, which felt like pretty much a worst kept secret, because a lot of times when we were talking about Carson Wentz's future, if he were to leave Philly, almost everybody you talk to, whether it be in the media or just fans alike, will always saying, well, Indy be a good fit. Indy be a great fit, and now is in Indy now. To me, I don't know how you feel, but Carson Wentz to the Colts, on paper, if you are to assume that Carson Wentz can get back to close to what he was, say in 2017, even 2018, is a perfect fit. What says you?
Yeah, I mean, he's looking back up with Frank Wright, who was his offensive coordinator there with the Eagles. So I definitely think that's the perfect scenario for him, and that's the guy who who oversaw him playing his best football of his career. And he really hadn't been the same since, really, because of injury or, just poor play. And now you link back up with Frank Wright, and, Frank definitely has a rapport with Carson, no prior relationship. He knows his strengths and weaknesses, and obviously the Colts had a needed quarterback. So I think it's definitely a perfect fit for both sides, too, as well. And Carson comes into a really good situation where I think the Colts have one of the better offensive line, if not the best offensive line in football. So he doesn't necessarily have to worry about that. And has a really good running, surrounded by a good running game too as well, and a really good defense. So yeah, I think it's a perfect scenario for both teams, and this allows the Colts to kind of stay relevant and also contenders in the AFC too, as well, especially in that division with the Titans as well.
I gotta be honest though, I'm still stunned he got traded, given the salary ramifications. Of course, we heard that him and Doug Peterson didn't get along toward the end. In fact, this past season, apparently they weren't on speaking terms. But then Doug Peterson gets fired. And you figure, okay, well, maybe this is the way to maybe stick it to Wentz for more years, see if we can get something out of him and whatnot. But I'm still surprised they traded him, given everything with the, as I said, salary ramifications, all that. But I'm still stunned. That being said, on paper, I look at the Colts, who already, to me, have one of the best offensive lines of football, solid defense. They got good playmakers. They made the playoffs last year at Phillip Rivers, who just retired. To me, in the AFC, you look at the Chiefs. Obviously, the Bills are good. But after that, to me, it feels wide open. And on paper, the Colts could be, to me, right there. First off, do you think Carson Wentz can get back to what he was 3 years ago? And if so, are they a Super Bowl contender in the AFC?
I'm not sure if he gets back to what he was. I think this is the best chance he can have to get back to that formula. Because, like I say, he's surrounded by a lot more talent than he was in Philadelphia. So that's for sure, definitely. So I think he'll play better. Will he get back to that MVP type form when in 2017 when he helped at least in the front half help the Eagles get to where they were and eventually winning the Super Bowl? I think he has a really good chance of doing that. Now, as far as them contending the AFC, I mean, it's possible. I mean, like you said, the Chiefs are there and the Bills, but after that, it's kind of a toss up. The Ravens have some questions to address. I still think they're going to be there. The Titans. That's probably that's a tough opponent, obviously, for the Colts too, as well in their own division. They'll be there, and then after that, you got the Browns. Are they gonna continue to be really good? And then have some other teams up on the horizon too. I like the Dolphins. I'm interested to see what they do throughout the offseason and how they improve their team because they finished 10-6 after finishing 5-11 the year before that. So they can surround Tua with some weapons and keep improving there. They're a team that could possibly sneak into the playoffs too as well. And obviously you always have teams that didn't make the playoffs the year before and, surprising people too as well. So, yeah, I think they'll have an opportunity to at least get back to the playoffs and, maybe get a little bit further this time. But, yeah, they're definitely in a good position where they can at least make the playoffs and, just kind of see what happens from there. It's all about matchups. And, if they can get the right matchup, maybe they can make the divisional round or, beyond.
Obviously this is being dubbed as the offseason of the quarterback, with everything going on with a lot of quarterbacks on the move, potentially on the move, all that. What I didn't think was this guy would be possibly involved in Russell Wilson. Now, look, I don't think Russell Wilson will be moved. I think he'll be the Seattle Seahawks starting quarterback week one when the 2021 season kicks off in September. That's my opinion. However, I didn't think that a simple comment that he made on a Dan Patrick show 2 weeks ago will grow legs now to the point where we're now hearing some chatter about teams inquiring, Seattle maybe taking some phone calls just to see what's out there, what could they potentially get if they were to actually pull a trigger on a Russell Wilson trade. I don't see Russell Wilson being moved right now in the short term, but I do think that this is a situation that's very fluid and could have ramifications depending on how the Seattle Seahawks turn out in 2021. Where do you stand on this whole situation with Russell Wilson? Do you think he's traded this offseason, or you think he'll be here at least for another year?
I don't think he's going to get traded. I think they're trying to win now, and Pete Carroll he'll turn 70 in September, so he's obviously not trying to go through a rebuild.
Right.
Russell Wilson doesn't want to get. I don't think Russell Wilson necessarily wants to get traded. He just wants to have more power within the organization, and I think that's a tricky thing.
Do you think he should? What's your opinion? Do you think he should have more power?
No.
Oh, really?
You look at the Deshaun Watson type of situation. No, I don't. Like I think some power. You can have input, but you can't give players a certain. I think in the NBA it's different because you have a guy like LeBron who can just instantly. Well, I think quarterbacks can too. If you look at Tom Brady and some guys too, they instantly just change the fortune of a franchise. It's very rare that can happen in the NFL. It's so many different. It's more of a team sport oriented sport. So I would give him some input, but you can't have him making, to be the one that's making all the decisions because you look at Deshaun Watson when the Texans decided not to, inquire him about who they were hiring as the general manager and the head coach. He ended up getting upset about it. And, if you start giving players those power and you decide you want to go in a different direction, then they get upset and now they end up wanting to get traded and they feel like they're being lied to. And so I think it's a tricky situation when you start giving players that much power. I would definitely like to have them be in some involvement with it, but I don't think you want to have them have ultimate power over personnel decisions or coaching hires. Some influence, but not the total end-all, be-all.
We'll touch on Deshaun Watson in a second. But with me in the Seattle situation, it does feel – and look, I like Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll is one of the top 5-10 coaches in the league. That's not a question. But it does feel like things have gotten a little stale there. Like, it kind of reminds you of Mike McCarthy in his final years in Green Bay. Like, it feels like Pete Carroll, there's some – rumblings, obviously they're going to be fine publicly, Russell's going to show, respect and vice versa and all that. But I feel like there's something maybe there going on between Russell Wilson and maybe Pete Carroll and decision making. And I don't think Russell Wilson actually wants full control. I think he's want input in some of the decisions being made in terms of personnel and whatnot. But I do feel like there's something there, a little bit of frustration towards Pete Carroll, and add to the fact that I believe Pete Carroll has gotten a little stale in Seattle.
It's hard. When you went so early in your career, and, I think a lot of people expected Seattle to win,
right.
to win multiple Super Bowls, and it just hadn't happened. It's hard. It's hard to win championships. It really is. Drew Brees is going to go out winning one championship. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think some people, especially when you start, we're in this era where people want to count up championships and decide who's the best and all of this, it puts a lot of pressure on players to try to win. And, Seattle hasn't done that really since Russell Wilson was out of his rookie deal. It becomes that much harder. That's why you have to try to win early on when these guys are on their rookie cheap deals, because once they come out of that, then it becomes that much harder to try to keep everybody. And I think with the Seahawks, their defense got older, and Russell got better, but, trying to surround him with the talent that he needs. And, you try to put a running game around him. That didn't work. Now they do have a running game, but it seems like Russell wants to air it out more, but you really don't have the offensive line to necessarily do that. So you need to try to improve on that and also get some better additions defensively too. So yeah, I think he kind of sees what's going on with Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees, and wants to get back to another championship, and he's beyond frustrated with that. And I definitely get it, especially the way they lost to the Rams this year to a team that had. Jared Goff. He's a good player, but he's nowhere near on the level that Russell Wilson is. But they have a better team around him. So I think he's definitely frustrated with that. And sees what other teams are doing and wants to get back to try to at least get to win
But you
another
do
Super
think
Bowl.
Russell Wilson will be the strong quarterback week 1?
Yeah, I don't think he. They said he didn't necessarily want to get traded, but if they were to explore that, it would be some teams. But I don't think he wants. I just think he wants to have a little bit more input, as you said, and just it seems like something that could be worked out as opposed to Deshaun Watson, where it seems like it's kind of done. Like
I've been stunned this story grew legs in 2 weeks. And especially a story where we all assume, like you and I on the same page, we all assumed that Russell Wilson would not be going anywhere. But this story's growing legs in 2 weeks. It's something, a simple interview with Dan Patrick, all of a sudden this story has legs. It's weird. No,
well,
right.
He put
did
that out there.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he wanted to do that. Yeah. This is all on him. Yeah, he did the Walter Payton Man of the Year tour and decided, I'm going to air out me being unhappy. So
no doubt about that.
This is all on him. And then it kind of manifested to there, and then you have the Athletic article that came out on Thursday, and more details about it.
Unhappy. Deshaun Watson, Houston Texans quarterback, he reiterated today to his head coach, new head coach, I think it's David Callen's his name, that he has no desire to stay in Houston, that he wants to leave, and he just wants to leave. So obviously this story is fluid. The Texans have said publicly that they're not going to trade him. They don't plan on trading him, which, look, it's February. You got a lot of time to the draft and whatnot to make moves. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
That being said, 2-part question. One part, I guess, really. What's the best fit for him? What team is the best fit?
For him, it probably would be the Dolphins. But I get the sense, just talking to people, they're not interested in trading for him, at least not at the moment. Now, obviously, that could change. I think just, from his standpoint and trying to win right away, that would be the best fit, because I think the Dolphins are in a position to win, and you added a guy like that, you could potentially win right away, depending on what you give up in the process. Now, I don't necessarily think the Dolphins will go after him. Now, like I say, that could change. It's so early in the process that they may decide, it may be worthwhile going after. So I think that's a fit too. I know a lot of people talk about Carolina, but I think the problem with Carolina is, one, do you want to give up that many draft picks? And two, do you want to, you're not a good team anyway, but do you want to give up on the young pieces that you already have? And then you trade all that to get Watson, and you're kind of in the same boat Houston is in, where you're probably like a 5 or 6 win team, and you still need to kind of start over, but you do have a starting franchise quarterback. So yeah, I think for him, it would definitely be the Dolphins. I think, for other teams, they're going to have to weigh out and see if it's worth their while to make that deal, because it's going to take a lot just to trade him, because Houston doesn't want to do it. But I think at some point, you're going to have to, especially when I think if they were winning and then they had draft picks and capital, then yeah, you could just force him to come in and do all of that, and you can call his bluff. But when you don't have a first round pick and or a second round pick either, for that matter, and then you have this young talent out there that people are calling about and leaving voicemails, at some point you just got to listen, say, what, we got a new regime in there. He doesn't want to be here. Let's just try to get as much as we can and just start over. And I think that's probably eventually that's what they're going to come to terms with.
I know what Houston's saying, obviously, but we're not going to trade him. But there's no way he's on that roster next in September, right? There's no way.
I don't think so. Like I said, I would think they would trade him, but it doesn't seem like he wants to play. And like I say, if I was, I kind of would want to call his bluff and see if he would not want to play ever again. But I don't think that'd be the case. I don't think it's going to be a Carson Palmer situation where he wanted to get traded from Cincinnati and retired, and then briefly came back with the Raiders and unretired. So I don't think it's going to be that. But yeah, I would like to see if he would come into camp and just not be happy, because with the new bargaining agreement, you really can't sit out anymore, or you get fined and, things of that nature. So they may call his bluff, but I think at some point you just have to say, you know what, we got new people in there. Let's just try to get as much as we can for them and, try to start over. Because, you were 4-12 team with him anyway. So you might as well just try to get as much as you can. And, him being unhappy is not necessarily going to make things better. So I would definitely entertain trade him, but just get as much as you can for him. And make
You know
sure
what
you get
teams?
a lot.
There were two teams I was looking at. One team is a contender when healthy. Another team is a potential a team that can be on the rise if he goes there. You know what team I think should really go look into that? Now, I know like they said they'll stick with the quarterback, but again, this is February. There we go.
Oh, 49ers.
You put the odds on that. In my opinion, you put them on that
Yeah.
squad. They are right there in the NFC. Remember, this team was just in the Super Bowl a year ago.
Yeah, they suffered a lot of
Yeah.
injuries even before the season got started, and then they just couldn't get out of their own way. And then eventually, at the end of the year,
And it was still
playoffs
competitive.
at the
Yeah.
end of the year, but then they became homeless. Yeah, they became homeless. They got kicked out of their home stadium, out of California, really in general, and then ended up having to play the rest of their games in Arizona at home. So, yeah, it was a tough situation for them. It was just a bad year for them, but it's like a really bad hangover effect for the 49ers. But, yeah, I think that would be a good fit for them. It's just a matter of if you want to give up a ton to get him. But, yeah, I think that would be a really good fit for him. And
the other team I was thinking about, and this is obviously going to be a long shot, but I don't know how the Broncos feel about Drew Lock long term. But that's just another team I think. At least I've been saying for weeks that the Broncos should at least be inquiring.
Yeah, I think that would be a good fit for him too. They got a ton of weapons offensively. He could come in there and just fit in right away. I like some of the players that they have defensively. It'd be curious to see what they would have to give up to give them. But yeah, I don't think the Broncos are that far off. I just think they had a guy like Watson, and then they keep have Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamlin, Noah Fant there offensive on their tight end. I love the skill position players that they have, so that would be a really, really good
What's
fit
the
for him.
situation with Big Ben Roethlisberger? Like, he has one more year in his contract, right?
Yeah, it's
$43 million. $43 million.
It seems like they're gonna. And it counts like 41 over the cap,
right?
41 cap wise, but it seems like they're gonna restructure it. But that's kind of the direction that they go. If they would have cut him, then he's gonna be under cap anyway. So whether you cut him or not, so you might as well just keep him and try to restructure.
Right,
the deal
I agree
somehow.
with you. And that's been my argument with people on social media about this. People saying, well, they should cut him and he's not good anymore. And I don't disagree that he's not he's probably not a top 16 quarterback right now in the league. But because they don't have anyone else behind them, he's right now their best option in the 1 year sample. You might as well keep him for now. Draft the guy that could potentially be the guy in waiting for 2022. And let's go from there. I mean, we had the template ready for the Giants, what they did with Eli Manning his final year. They drafted Daniel Jones, and Jones ended up starting by week 3, week 4. Same thing with the Steelers. Big Ben, he's not horrific. He can still win you some games.
No, he had good numbers last. It's just a matter. People forget about the 11-0 start, and then they remember the way that they played at the end of the year. Like, we're so used to remember what you did for what have you done for me lately that you kind of forget what happened in the first 3 months of the season. He had like over 30 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. So it wasn't a bad year by any stretch of the imagination. It just looked bad on paper at the end because they had a ton of injuries on both sides of the ball. They couldn't run the ball, and they forced Ben to throw the ball like 40, 50 times, and that's not what you want to do. That's just, you're putting a lot of pressure on a guy that's an agent in that sense. So, no, you don't want to necessarily do that. You just need to surround him with a running game. You need to shore up the offensive line now with Pouncey retiring and also, get some more help on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think they're far off at all. I mean, they made the playoffs last year. So, you get Ben back and maybe surround him with a little bit more talent and, we'll see. But, yeah, I don't think he's far from their biggest problems. So that team has some far other issues than Ben.
One more quarterback question. Cam Newton, is he done as a starter in the league, or do you see him getting a starting job somewhere else?
He could start, but I don't think anybody's going to give him the keys to a franchise right away. I think he's going to have to go out and earn it because, after what happened last year, and it's not all his fault. And, coming out with COVID and, he ended up getting signed by the Patriots late in July. He had to learn the playbook pretty quickly. And, you like you say, you come in, you don't have a traditional training camp. is definitely unusual in that sense. And then now you're trying to learn a playbook that was catered for Tom Brady, and they're trying to put things in there in Winkles for Cam Newton, and it just didn't work at times. But also his some of the execution, and he's taken a lot of beating in his time in the league too as well. So he's not the same quarterback either. So I think I can see the Patriots bringing him back, but I don't think he's going to go be. He could be the starter, but they're going to have somebody else competing with him, or bring in a young guy just in case if he falters or gets hurt or something like that. But yeah, I think it's hard. I know he thinks I believe he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league. Yeah, but it isn't always necessarily about that. It's about, does a team want to start with a young guy and, build from there? Because, if you bench Cam Newton, I don't know how he's going to react. I really don't. I don't know if he's a guy that's going to sit the bench and be that type of guy. That's my fear. I just don't know. I would be scared to bring that to my team because that could just kill your morale.
I'm glad you mentioned the Patriots because I'm still stunned. That they just gave up both sides, Cam and his Patriots, like right before the season even ended. The talk was that we're going to just part ways, and given the optics, given that Cam came to the team yet late. The Patriots last year, obviously was a down year for the first time in over 2 decades, but no one talks about, a lot of the issues they have with COVID and moving, practices and this and that. When you consider all that, 7-9 is not a bad record considering all of those things that played into the season.
And
a lot of opt-outs before the season started. Yeah.
Like nearly 10
so my thing is why not run it back one more year?
Yeah, I would, like I said, I would do it, but I would go in with the situation like we need to bring somebody in younger too. And also surround whoever it is with talent too as well. But yeah, I think they need to draft a quarterback too. Because I don't think Cam Newton's the answer, but at the same time, I would be willing to see what he looks like in year 2 there. And it's not going to cost you a lot either. I mean, it seems like he'd be willing to come back, probably a little bit more than what he made, but it's not going to kill you to sign Cam Newton and have some kind of veteran there along with a rookie type situation and just let the best quarterback win. If the rookie wins out and, maybe you just cut ties with Cam Newton there before the start of the season. If not, then if Cam wins, then you're good and just roll with him until, he proves you otherwise, and then you start the rookie. So I think it's a win-win situation if they decide to go that route.
All right, let's go to your favorite league in the whole world, the NBA. I'm just joking. I'm so joking.
No, I've been watching. I actually been watching a lot of some of the games.
Oh, they're fun.
The Suns play. The Hornets.
They're fun. They're definitely fun.
Yeah. I watched a few Heat games and that. So yeah, I actually been watching some of the games. But yeah, I really like watching the Suns. Devin Booker's just been out of this world.
The Lakers obviously lost 4 straight games. You obviously know their issues not having Anthony Davis. To me, it's really just as simple.
Yeah.
Like it's a simple arithmetic. If Anthony Davis is healthy come playoff time, as we saw last year, they're winning the championship. If he's not healthy, they're probably not getting out of the second round of the playoffs based on how good that West is this year. That's simple. And my fear is not a Laker fan, but if you're a Laker fan, is that it's not just that he's hurt. It's that this is Anthony Davis who's always hurt. So this isn't a normal thing. Last year was an anomaly because of COVID and being able to have a break before the restart and all that. And I really believe that played a part into their run late in the year. Anthony Davis being unhealthy is a problem, period, in discussion.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I mean, it's just he's been injured in plenty of years before, and his injuries have really derailed. You look at what happened with the Pelicans a few times too. Well, they really kind of held that team back. So yeah, I think the Lakers have to be very careful with bringing him back too soon. And yeah, I would wait.
I totally agree with you
to bring him back. And you might have to sacrifice a few notches in the seeding. I mean, that's fine. I mean, you might have a tougher road than the playoffs, but you get a healthy Anthony Davis back, then I think you can beat anybody out west. If you bring him back too soon and you get that number 1 or 2 seed, it's not going to really matter because if he's not completely healthy, you're going out pretty early, second or conference finals too. Because I think it's a question: can they win the championship anyway? But I think if you don't have him completely healthy, and if that's an injury you don't want to play around with, and if he's not healthy, then I think they're in.
What do you stand on
trouble.
LeBron and the whole, I'm okay playing max minutes and all that? Should the Lakers still monitor that, despite what LeBron says? And look, we know LeBron knows his body. We know how he's in tune with his body. But at the same time, a coach is there to even make the unpopular decisions, for example. Should the Lakers still prioritize that?
Yeah, I say so. Yes, because again, the Lakers. I mean, they don't need the 1 or 2 seed. It's about getting into the playoffs and winning the championship. At this point, I mean, the man LeBron has defied odds throughout his course of his career, except for the 1 year where suffering that injury at Christmas. So, I mean, for the better part of his career, he stayed pretty relatively healthy. So, you don't necessarily. He's 36 years old. I know he's a freak of nature, but he is 36 years old, and he's logged a ton of minutes in his career. So you definitely have to monitor that situation. You don't want to keep running him to the ground, and when it comes playoff time, when you really need him, you want that switch turned on, and it's not working. So I think you have to just, like I say, sacrifice, seeding. If you come into the playoffs and you're number 5 seed, okay, that's fine. Nobody's gonna really want to play the Lakers anyway, especially if we got a healthy Anthony Davis and, we got a LeBron James that's been resting, and, we all know playoff LeBron and how different animal that is. So, I think you have to just be really wary of trying to overexert yourself throughout the course of the regular season.
I think the hard part here at the grade especially is there's no precedent for this. There's never been a 36-year-old who's still the best player in that league playing at that level he is now. There's no precedent for this. There's no examples to use. As you just have to go based on you got to balance his needs versus what the team needs and all that. So I'm with you. I think the Lakers need to be very careful how they use him. Whatever LeBron says, but Frank Vogel needs to still step in there and make sure he's doing the right thing for his team, because Anthony Davis being hurt is a thing. It's a regular thing, and the percentage of him not playing in the playoffs is fairly high. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, they have to, and like, if you don't get AD back, healthy for the playoffs, you're gonna need LeBron that much more. So that's another reason I think you have to make sure that he's well rested too as well. Because I mean, out west it's always been tough, but I think this year is really, really tough. I don't know if the Jazz are how far they can go, but
that's my next question.
Right
actually,
now.
That's my next question. How much do you believe in the Jazz?
Not enough to think they're going to win a championship, but enough to think they can get to the conference finals.
They have the talent, man. They got one of the best rosters in the league.
Yeah,
but that doesn't matter once you get to the playoffs.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It becomes a different game at that point, and I just don't know. I don't trust them enough to put all my eggs in that basket. I would take the Clippers over them. I would take, obviously, a healthy Lakers team. Depending on just how things are, I would take a few other teams too as well. So, I'm not trusting that bag right now. They are looking good though. They're like a team that's going to be really good in the regular season, but potentially out in the second round.
The spectrum is that high. They can go to the finals, but be out in the first round too. I mean, depending on the matchups, because the West is that good. Yeah. How shocked are you about your Hornets? The Hornets I can't stand, obviously, for many years, because they're as a Heat fan, of course, became the league in the same year, 1988, and we've been rivals for that long. But the Hornets have been pretty surprising, to me anyway. How surprised are you?
I'm surprised with Melo. Ball has been better than I expected him to be, and come in and just really energize his team, and you have a chance to, even if they just get into the playoffs and lose in 5 games or so, I think that's an accomplishment for this team. They're going in the right direction. They really got a really good young team. I like the addition of Terry Rozier. A lot of people kind of crapped on that, but he's done a good job there. Devontae Graham has been good. I love Miles Bridges, P.J. Washington. They got some really good young talent too as well. So I think really the sky's the limit for this team. I'm curious to see if they'll go out there and probably get a big man, for the stretch run. I think that's probably the one thing that they really, really need. But even if they don't do that, I still think they're a team that could just potentially sneak in the playoffs. And I think that's good enough for them to just start out with. And, you just.
I mean, right now they're the 8th seed right now in the East. And the thing is, outside Brooklyn and Philadelphia, no one else has run away with the conference. Now, I don't think they're going to get to the 3 seed, obviously the 4 seed. But nothing's a real possibility. The 4th seed right now is Indiana, and they're at 500. Charlotte's only, a game behind that? A half game behind that? So, it's a strange year. We're living in strange times, obviously in the era of COVID. I've seen weird things happen. I mean, I wouldn't bet against Charlotte, sneaking in there.
They also play in I was going to say, they also play in a really bad division this year, even though I expect the Heat to get better. But now that everybody's healthy, but that division has been, total crap this year. Let's just be honest.
I'm not down by the East this year. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of it has to do with the situation with the pandemic, but still, it's a complete letdown in the conference. It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you been keeping up with WME? Oh.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I watched Elimination Chamber.
What do you think?
Saw what happened there. It kind of reminded me of 10 years ago when Miz ended up doing the similar type thing and cashing the money in bank, and people were just upset about it and how talked about how terrible a wrestler he is and all. But the man he's been putting it down for 15 years at least, if not more. I mean, I remember when he came in and he was just he really wasn't good at all. He was really raw, and then he ended up becoming a WWE champion like 5 years later, and he's got better. He's one of the better heels. I think in the company, and he's been loyal. When other people have left, he still remains, and I love it. I know he's going to lose the title soon, but I still love it for him just to be able to say he was a Grand Slam champion twice. That's pretty impressive. That somebody else hasn't done that.
No, it's impressive. Number one, he's one of the best promos in the business. The guy, say what you want. I mean, and a lot of people have been critical of that whole cash in on Sunday. Let me be honest with you. I'm not surprised at all. I actually thought it was going to happen. But the guy, if you thought this guy, I watched The Real World back in New York in 2001, okay? And I watched that, and to see where he's at now, and on my wrestling podcast, we did our own intercontinental all-time intercontinental championship bracket, and he won the whole thing. He's the guy that because he beat Macho Man. He's the guy that actually made that belt relevant again for the first time in years.
Yeah, I was gonna say they had him win it over Jericho. I would have picked Jericho, but he's definitely right there. Like those two are probably the two, at least in the modern times, are the best intercontinental champions.
Well, he's phenomenal. Like I have no problem with him holding the title. I think he's a placeholder though for either Drew McIntyre or Bobby Lashley. Which, by the way, I've been saying since late last year, Bobby Lashley will be the WWE champion at some point in the next year, and it might be WrestleMania.
Well, it might be before that too. It looks like. I think what might happen is I know they got the title match on Monday, but I have a feeling something's going to happen. So I would imagine they got Fastlane coming up. So I think he probably wins the title there, and then I could see him facing Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, and I think that's probably how it's going to go. That's just my perspective how I think it might go. But I think he's long overdue for another title run. I mean, I know he had one when he first came in WWE with the ECW championship, but this is definitely a completely different level. But he came back. Yeah, Lashley, yeah. So he's come back, and I love his role there, kind of like a monster type heel, and ended up losing the U.S. title. So once he lost that, and I kind of figured he was going to get some kind of a title run chance opportunity.
I'm surprised they gave it to Riddle. I thought, once Keith Lee got told not to do once they announced that he wasn't going to do the match. I thought, okay, well maybe they just keep it on last another week or so. We'll see what happens. But I'm
I thought
really
Morrison might win it too. Actually, yeah, I did.
They'll probably do an angle with the two champions.
Yeah, because I don't know. I don't think he's ever won
just IC title,
or anything like that. Yeah, so yeah, that's what I know.
But I'm so happy because I think the Hurt Business is the best faction, not just WWE obviously, but I think it's the best faction in all pro wrestling in general. I love that faction, and I think the Hurt Business really saved Bobby Lashley's career because it's made him to the guy that I thought he should have been from day one, the monster type. You put him with MVP, especially too, as his mouthpiece.
Yeah,
it's perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like Brock Lesnar. Yeah, kind of like Paul Heyman doing this thing. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. And then MVP is a great talker, so I definitely think it's perfect. Yeah. It's definitely a perfect situation, and of course the MVP gets to wrestle. So, and they're about the same age, crazy or not. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a perfect situation for MVP to be in that role and to kind of jump up Lashley just being in that way. He doesn't have to say a whole lot. He can, but he doesn't necessarily have to do it. MVP does it for him.
How are you enjoying this Roman Reigns heel run? It's amazing.
Oh, I love it. I think they should have done that years ago. Once again, but yeah, I think it's great. Now you're gonna have him face Edge at WrestleMania. I think that's I definitely can't wait for that. It's gonna seems like a lot of good matches at WrestleMania. And, I imagine Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt when Wyatt's gonna come back, whenever that is. See, doing a little Papa Shango type of thing.
I think also you have the legend Bad Bunny also be involved somehow. Yep,
well, I think he's going to cost the Miz the title. That's probably how it's going to work. And then him and Miz and Morrison team up against him and Bad Bunny and Damian Priest.
He's been great, by the way, Damian Priest in Raw so far. He's great fit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it seems like he's a typical Vince guy, big guy, 6'5", can move. Yeah, they probably really love that.
And it's funny because I wasn't, when I watched him at NXT, I wasn't a huge fan of his at first, and he grew on me in the last half year. I was like, oh, this is pretty good actually. He's not bad,
Yeah, I really enjoy him too. So yeah, I'm definitely see how far they can take him. Hopefully, eventually they can give some kind of U.S. title push or something like that. Just kind of see how he does.
All right, last thing, let you go. I say this the last purposely because I know we always like to touch on hip hop and all that. So last week on this podcast, I did a segment touching on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees for this year, 2021, and on that ballot we obviously got Jay-Z in the ballot, but also on that ballot, I'm not sure it's his first time on as well. It probably shouldn't be, but maybe it is. I'm not sure. Was LL Cool J. And I was talking about LL Cool J in the podcast.
Yeah.
And what I was saying was that when you look at the totality of his entire career, could it be argued? I think it could be argued that he might be the biggest hip hop star in history of genre when you consider everything, not just music, but also as an actor, obviously doing movies and all that. And he's still relevant today. He's still big name today. We're talking now over 30 years. Is LL Cool J the biggest name ever in the genre? Hip star.
Yeah, he's been on the ballot for a while. I was hoping he'd be in by now, but for whatever reason, it just hadn't came to fruition. And now you're starting to see, people like Biggie and Tupac, and now Jay-Z getting on there and on the ballot. And yeah, he paved the way for all of those. Like the reason that hip hop is as big as what it is now is partly because of him. To be honest with you, the reason that rappers can do these kind of ballad love songs, and he did some hardcore stuff too, but hip hop was looked at as one specific way, especially when you had like a Rakim or Chuck D and some of the other guys in the 80s. But LL Cool J really changed the mold, and now you have these hardcore rappers that are doing love songs about love or stuff like that, or more like pop records. And really because of him, like I said, he was the trendsetter. Like every single rapper that's ever done it has used something that LL Cool J has done. Like everybody, Jay-Z, Nas, Biggie, Tupac, yeah, all of them. Like he paved the way for all of them. And like I say, Def Jam really was really the trendsetter too. When you talk about him and the Beastie Boys too, Run DMC was there at this time. Public Enemy would come a little bit later, but yeah, I mean he's one of the biggest. He should definitely be in for a lot of different reasons, but I think for that reason alone, and I know a lot of people see him, especially younger people, kind of just see him as an actor now. Don't necessarily know a whole lot about his music, but man, like I said, he's definitely a top 5, top 10 MC of all time.
Mm-hmm. And only that, but to me, this feels, as you said, that he's been on the ballot for a while now. That to me feels insulting, actually, that he hasn't gotten in yet, because this guy was not just big. He was on regular radio. He was on radio, not just R&B radio. He would get played also on regular pop contemporary stations also. Yeah.
He crossed over. Yeah, he crossed over. Like he was one of the few that crossed over. Like he was on MTV, like constantly. When rappers typically weren't. Like typically you had rappers. Yeah, it wasn't. Unless you went on Young MTV Raps or Rap City, you wasn't really getting a whole lot of airplay. Yeah, you remember how it was on MTV. It'd be a lot of rock music and maybe some R&B. But he crossed over and he did Unplugged.
Yeah,
I mean, he did an Unplugged session when rappers wasn't necessarily doing that. It was more rock acts. So yeah, I mean, he's done a ton of different things. I just don't. I don't understand it. I thought he should have been in just simply because of all the accomplishments. And I get like it's a ton of people on that finalist list that should be probably all of them. That I can sit there and make a case that I think all of them should be in.
I was going to say that. Like LL isn't even the most shocking one. Tina's probably the biggest shock of all.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. But
it makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't.
It makes no sense at all, man. It makes no sense at all. I think it gets in though.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, I just don't get it. I was like, why is Tina Turner not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Like, she should have been in, and she's been eligible for. I mean, I don't know. God knows how long.
At least 15 years, if not longer.
That's what I'm saying. Like she's been eligible since she came out in the 70s, so. She's been eligible since probably the
she was
late
solo.
90s,
Well, she was
out
in the 60s with Ike, but she went solo, I think, in the 70s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But I think she'll get in. You have that documentary coming out with her on HBO next month as well. So I think we have that coincided with her with this latest nomination. I think there's no way she doesn't get in this time.
Yeah, I got a great Tina Turner story. I have a crush on her when I was a kid too. So yeah, I had a big crush on Tina Turner, and then I had a dream about her. And when I woke up from the dream, I guess he made me angry or something like that in my dream. I just ripped the poster down and then threw it in the garbage. And then my grandmother was like, "Why did you take out your Tina Turner poster?" I told her she was cussing me out in my dream.
That's funny. It's funny.
I was like 3 or 4
Tina Turner
years
was.
old too, so yeah.
Tina Turner has still to this day probably the best legs in the history of music. That's not even a compliment.
Yeah, or history of legs.
Like people talk about Beyonce and whatever, and look. People compare Beyonce to other artists, but I think the real comparison is Beyonce and Tina Turner.
Yeah, Tina, like a lot of people just don't. They kind of forget how great she was, especially in that era, and even like in mine when I was young in the '80s, like she was blockbuster. So yeah, I think she was just a trendsetter too. So yeah, I could definitely see that compared, especially with the dancing and some of the things that they both do concert wise as well.
Incredible. Anyway, Antwan, you got anything to plug?
Well, I wrote an article about DeAndre Francois. I did a piece on him at the interview. He was very candid about his time at Florida State and how really the program really hadn't been the same since he got hurt. He tore his patella tendon in 2017, and Florida State was ranked number 3 in the nation. They played Alabama the opening weekend of the season, and he went down. He out for the season. Florida State finished 7-6 that year, and the program hasn't recovered. He didn't recover. He ended up getting dismissed from the team because of the situation with his girlfriend, and now he's trying to find his way back into football, playing in a fan-controlled.
Oh, he's doing that now. Okay,
as well, which is interesting. But it's a really good article. If you want to check it out, you go to my website, you go to Twitter. It's on there. Also, you can go to Tallahassee.com and you'll see it on there too as well.
By the way, I remember that Alabama game. I actually watched that game with my brother and a couple of friends at Twin Peaks up in here in West Palm Beach. And my thing was that year is like I thought we'll lose one game that year, which is that one against Alabama. We run on the table the rest of the year and face Alabama again in the bowl or in the playoff. But of course they haven't been the same. Yeah.
So do I.
Yeah.
I thought they were stacked coming back. Despite them losing Dalvin, I thought they had Cam Akers replacing him, who's tearing it up in the NFL right now. So I was thinking, that'll be fine. So I thought the same thing too. I thought they finished 11-1, and then play in the playoffs. But
they have been the same since. Actually, honestly, the last time they were actually legitimately a top school was when they lost to Oregon in 2014. Jameis Winston's last game is a Seminole.
Yeah. Well, I think that. Well, they were a top 10. They were a top team when they beat Michigan in the Orange Bowl, but they
don't feel
wasn't
the same though, buddy.
Contender, but they finished top 5 that
same.
year, so I'll give them credit for that.
When you raised like me for 30 years being a fan of this school, and you're raised at this team always being a top 5 team every single year, the standards are set pretty high, man.
Yeah, they had 12 straight years finishing the top 5. So I don't think that. Even with Alabama, I don't even know. I don't think that's ever going to be done again.
I'm not used to this shit, dude.
It's crazy.
This is a weird team these days. These last 5 years have been bad, dude. Bad. But Twan, we'll talk soon. Follow Twan on Twitter, of course, at Antwan Staley. All his great work. It's a great follow on Twitter, on social media, and all that. We won't. I promise you, it won't be 2 years until next podcast. I promise you that. All right, buddy? All right, brother. You take it easy, okay?
Thank you.
All right, brother. Take care, man.
All right, you too.